and I've got the recording going. So if anybody logs in a little bit late, they can catch up in the recording. So let's just, we kind of ended last week in a bit of a rush and with a little bit of troubleshooting live on screen that didn't go so well. So we'll just recapitulate that a little bit. So if you recall, our model context protocol architecture, we've got kind of three components. We've got the host, which is generally an application like ChatGPT or Cursor, or maybe even an application we built ourselves. Inside of that will be the client, and that client sort of serves as the interface between the host application and the MCP server. So we've got some piece of code or a function or something built in to one of these apps, at one of these chatbots, let's say, and it's going to handle the requests to and responses from the server. So then we have the code that we're going to write, or something we download from a library, which is the actual MCP server. So that's going to be a Python script or something like that. In fact, Hugging Face has kind of a cool new thing. They have a sort of a Streamlit competitor called Gradio, and you can actually write a Gradio interface, just like a Streamlit interface, and with sort of one statement, turn it into an MCP server. So all of the little bits and pieces of the interface can be turned into services within the server. So that's kind of cool. Maybe we'll take a look at that down the road. The MCP server then stands in between the host, takes the requests, and then services them, provides data, takes an action, goes look something up, makes a calculation, does some service that the chatbot, let's say, doesn't have built in natively. It then returns that data to the server formats it and returns it back to the client. Pretty straightforward stuff, nothing terribly magical. And as you'll see when we get into the code, it's pretty straightforward. So where we kind of fell apart last week is I just wanted to show you quick how to install an actual MCP server on an actual chatbot. So let me do that real quick and get back and make that a little bit cleaner so that we kind of close that out. So I'm going to go back into LM Studio, and over on if you're using LM Studio, so I've got OpenAI OSS 20B, which does not have native capabilities of searching the internet or anything like that. So I can say something like, what Hugging Face or what Qwen vision models are hosted on Hugging Face. And hopefully it won't hallucinate. Hopefully it'll tell us that it doesn't know, or it may give us old information from its knowledge and training. Hopefully it'll respond in a reasonable amount of time here. I think I probably got the reasoning effort set a little higher than I want for such a simple query. Come on, you can do it. Why is this being so stubborn? Let's try it again. Must be too early in the morning. There we go. I'm actually beta testing a new version of LM Studio, so I guess your mileage may vary. So you can see it's thinking around, and I can see maybe kind of sort of there might be, you can see a lot of thought going into this answer. Um, and it really doesn't know. It just I can kind of see it going by, and it's can't quite figure it out. So here's some thoughts it has, but it really doesn't know. It's a quick reference, currently available, but it's kind of guessing because I can see that there's models not available. So we're going to go in and install a Hugging Face interface, an MCP server that lives at Hugging Face and can answer these questions. So the way we do that is in the chat window over on the right, you can see integrations. And under install, we have edit mcp.json. So here you can see MCP servers, and I'm going to paste in the code, the bits of code that I got from Hugging Face. So this was just on their website as an example. Again, you have to put your token in. So you have to go to Hugging Face and create an account if you don't have one and get a token. And I'll refresh this after. So don't use this one. It won't work after this class. But basically, the structure is pretty simple. You've got the name of the MCP server. You've got the URL if it's a remote one, and then you've got any variables that you need to pass along. So this is using an HTTP protocol, so it's got to pass it in the header. That's just the way these work. So let's see, I'm showing an error, so I probably got this should be curly braces. 3, 4. And it looks like I'm missing one here. There we go. So now the error goes away and now I can save it. It says it's been added successfully. And you can see over here now, we have a new entry, the HFMCP server, and you have to turn it on in order to make use of it. So now that it's on, we can actually see what the tools are within it. So these are this is the interface, and these are the tools within the MCP server that we have access to. So we have a model search, we have data set searches, we have repo details, document searches. We have this one called image fast generate. So let's go over now and we'll rerun. Let's start a new window here and we'll rerun this. And we should see it thinking about what it's going to do, and it should pick up the fact that it's got some tools here. Again, I may be, you can also see down here what things we have available. So it's now showing that HFMCP server is available. It looks like we're sort of hung up again. So I'm just going to kill this and paste it in again. It seems like it takes 2 tries to get going here. Okay. So now it says the model wants to call model search. Now this is an aspect of MCP servers you should be aware of, that most chatbots and stuff will ask you permission to use a tool before it uses it. This is a safety issue. If you've got tools that can write to your file system and stuff, you probably want to be very careful. So we have the ability to deny, proceed. We can say this one's safe. We don't have to worry about this. So always allow this to work. So hit proceed, and now you can see it's actually using model search. And we can drop this down and you can see it's calling it with this query. It got a result showing the first models and it should be processing that hopefully. You know, they say never beta test something in front of an audience. Uh, so it, I guess it's working. It's just taking a little bit longer than I expect. So it's now kind of looping around and around. Fun. It's crazy. It worked completely last night when I was running through all this and testing everything, of course. So let me stop this. I think I'll open a new chat just to clear the board. Oh, here it failed to generate the tool call. It tries again. It's got a lot of redundancy built in. That's probably why it's kind of looping. Goodness gracious. I am just I'm completely screwed, it seems like. Um every time I've run this without you guys watching, it's worked perfectly. Let's try the image generator. That was working. Um so it should call there is an image generator hosted on Hugging Face. So now you can see it thinking about what it's going to do. Again, it wants to call the image fast generate. Now, image generation is something that GPT OSS can't do. It's not possible, but we can add that through an MCP server, assuming it works. And we can always watch it thinking. You can see what it's calling model search. Oh man. This is crazy. This worked completely. Trust me.
What does it say at the bottom if you expand one of those model searches? What's its last thought before it comes back around again?
Uh, it's doing the old search. It's like
Yeah.
repeating the old search. So what I'm going to do, this is interesting. Um, hang on one second. I know what I'll do is I'm going to switch over to my Mac Studio because I've got a different version of LM Studio running over there. So apologize for the mishap here.
It's just
I'll just pop.
what it means to be on the cutting edge of technology, Tom.
Yep, that's what I used to tell customers. I can prove that I'm not faking this demo because otherwise it would work. Uh, okay, so let me pop over here and start. I have the Hugging Face over here. It says it's not working. Man, I am just snake bit today. Oh, got the wrong. I've got an expired token. Problem is, if I can't get this to work, none of my demos are going to work. Hang on 1 second. It's the craziest thing. All right, I'm going to quit LM Studio completely. I'm going to restart it. I'm going to test one thing here real quick, just see if it gets out of its loop. Okay, now it's working. I just had to quit it and restart it. So let me go back. Apologize again. Let's see. All right, nothing up my sleeve. You can see it ran the model search this time, and then it came back and said, here is a quick snapshot of the most recent Quen-based models you can find on Hugging Face, the top 10 results by download count. So it's actually accessing Hugging Face, it's sorting, it's pulling the data back, it's getting the top 10, and they're all Quen-based models. Well, kind of snuck. Oh no, it's a Eigen banana, not Nano banana. So Nano banana is a new Gemini model. So here's a how-to on how to create a pipeline in Python, etc. So yay, it works. It just needed to be restarted. So let me turn off the server real quick, and we'll say, create an image of a ginger cat painting a self-portrait with the portrait in the style of Picasso. We'll make it as complicated as possible. So we'll see now I've got the MCP server turned off, and we'll see what GPT does with that. Again, this is a 20B model, pretty small. And it's referring back. It's showing how to do the image using Quen. So it can't do it because it doesn't have access to this. But it's thinking we're referring back to the Quen image model. So here's how to do it using Quen. So let's turn the MCP server on, and we'll paste in the same thing, and we'll see if it uses the image generator now instead of referring to our previous chats. So now it's doing Quen image fast generate. It's generating a prompt. You can see the prompt is a ginger cat. Now it enhanced the prompt. So nice little free add-on there. Here are the arguments. So it's doing some thinking. Here's the prompt. So here's kind of the payload that it's sending. So it's still crunching away, letting the image generator. And here we have our cat painting a self-portrait in the image in the style of a Picasso. So that's what I'm trying to get to, is you can add capabilities to a model or to a chatbot that simply don't exist by creating an MCP server on your own or downloading one. This one we just downloaded from Hugging Face. So we added a complete image generation capability. We added Hugging Face searches and all of that Obviously, it was a little rough this morning getting it started, but it generally works. So back to our slides. In general, it's not that difficult. So back to our slideshow. All right. Hopefully the rest of it will go easier. So now the communication protocol is a standard, and this is critical. Remember, we talked about M times N versus M plus N last time. MCP uses a simple JSON remote protocol to do the request response. And there's sort of three different kinds of messages: request, responses, and notifications. Requests are, hey, run this tool with this payload, with these parameters. The response comes back, here's the result with these parameters. And then we also have a notification, which is kind of a one-way protocol, which allows the server just to kind of give status updates. You saw some of that in our thinking. While it was thinking, it was getting status updates, or potentially can get status updates from the server. There's two basic transport mechanisms depending on where your server lives. So we're going to work on a server that's going to live on our machine, and we're going to use standard I/O. The old Linux, Unix standard in, standard out. So we use that when the client and the server are on the same machine. What we did with the Hugging Face is we used a URL, and that just uses HTTP and server-side events. So that just sends the basic package over HTTP. Pretty straightforward, similar to just about everything else on the internet. There is a new version of it that allows streamable HTTP. So just like the chatbots can stream their answers, you can actually stream the answers coming back from your MCP server to make it feel more like a regular part of the chatbot ecosystem. So inside of our server, we have three basic kinds of things. There's actually a few more, but those are a little more complicated and nuanced. So we're going to focus on the basics. The main one is tools, really. We're going to talk mostly about tools today, but we also have resources and we have prompts. So tools are the things, they do things, they take action. They use code to do some stuff. So basically, our LLM will be our server will advertise the fact that it has a list of tools available. The tools have English language descriptions. The LLM absorbs those and knows that it has an image generator, or it has a model lookup capability within Hugging Face. So if it interprets a user request as needing one of those things, it now has a catalog of those with nice descriptions, and it can make use of those. And so if we give it a tool with a description of get the current weather for a location, it will connect to that, and it'll use that, and the server will connect to an API, fetch the current weather, and format that and return it to the LLM. So we might give a little bit more description and explain why the tool might be useful, what the format of the return will be, etc. The things to look out for is that tools are active pieces of code and they can have side effects. So if you're doing things like writing files or doing database operations, you might want to be a little bit careful. That's one reason why you saw that pop up requesting permission to continue. The user is in the loop. The user can say, go ahead and do it, and it can say, go ahead and do it forever. But all tools in general will default to asking for permission. The next thing is a resource. Typically, this is sort of a read-only type situation. So you could have text documents, you could have database reads and stuff like that. It's just providing data. So your LLM can go out and get data using the MCP server. It won't take any actions per se, but it will pull data in. So you might pull in a whole 2 years worth of weather data for a location so that the LLM can analyze it. So it doesn't really take any actions on its own, but it can pull in some data, static or dynamic. So we'll show an example of that. And then the third case is prompts. And this is basically creating a template uh, for your LLM to use for a particular situation. A little bit, basically same as any other prompting template that we've done. We did that with our ticket agent. We created prompt templates. This is just another way to do that. We can give the user a prompt template to fill out instead of having them type a query. I'll show you an example of that when we do our code. So all of these can work together. Uh, LM Studio really only uses tools. It doesn't really provide access to the resources or prompts. Claude Desktop uses all three. So tools basically is the client calling the server. It does have side effects. It does need approval. And these are like API calls, data manipulation, calculations, things like that. Resources are also a client call to the server. It's read-only typically. Generally doesn't need approval because it doesn't cause any side effects, and it's generally used for data retrieval and building up your context. Go get some information. Maybe there's a README file. Maybe there's documents out there, not necessarily needing to be ragged or anything like that. And then prompts are kind of the other direction. It sits on the server and feeds the client. So we can use guided workflows. We can have specialized templates. We can have a template that takes on a particular role. So we can have an alternative to our weather where we have it act in a certain role by using a prompt template. Pretty straightforward. It's a little hard to explain, but you'll see it in action. When we fire up the server, it advertises what resources it has to the client that's inside of, let's say, the chatbot. So as you saw inside of LM Studio, when we fired up the Hugging Face MCP server, we got a list of tools over on the side, and that gives the chatbot access. It gives it a catalog, essentially. And once that's advertised, then any query will be held up against that to see if any of those tools are useful for this particular query. You can still just do regular old queries that have nothing to do with Hugging Face or image generation, and the tools will basically be ignored. You can install 25 MCP server, and you'll have a giant list of tools, and it probably will take a while to go through them all. So we're going to do some code now. And what I want to do is show you kind of what the code inside of a server looks like by developing a simple one. Any questions so far?
Tom, just on the resources
Yeah.
versus tools. So a static blob file is a resource.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, you could probably just use, like if I was doing LM Studio, it only uses tools. So I feel like the distinction is kind of mainly for security purposes. If you tag something as a resource, it's not going to ask permission to access it. If you
Okay.
tag it as a tool, you could do the same function using a tool.
Okay.
It's just that the tool is automatically going to flag itself as possibly dangerous. So I think that's really the only distinction.
So I'm trying to paint it into a scenario in my head. So if I have what I would call potentially sensitive data, not within Vori, but to anyone else in the world, of here's all of our product ad spend, right?
Hmm.
And that would be a tool, be something I could use as a tool. I could get in and query. I could pull stuff out of it. Maybe I had an entire book on product marketing strategies, and that's a static resource that it isn't secure. It's available on the public internet. That would be a resource.
Yes. And what I would probably do is within the tool, I would probably use an API to get at anything sensitive that would have a security wrapper around it.
Yeah,
So, you know, I would have an extra layer of security rather than rely on the tool itself to do
absolutely.
it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. So I'm going to walk through a little bit of code here and show you. Basically, we're going to use a little bit of a library, a framework called FastMCP. So that's going to help us build our code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a simple little weather server that's going to go to Google and get the weather for any location that we want. So basically, we're going to bring in FastMCP, and the API we're going to use to do this is called SERP API. So let me just take you over what you're going to want to do if you want to duplicate this, which I really suggest you do once I put everything up on the Git. Let me I'll, show you SERP API. So if you go to SERP API, you'll register an account. And once you have the account, you'll get uh, free some free searches. So I got just for signing up, I got 250 free searches, and I signed up a long time ago, and they were running a special, so they gave me 1,100 more free searches. So I've got like a lot of free searches. But this is the kind of thing where enterprise they want you to get sucked into it and uh, sign up for the $20,000 a month enterprise plan or something like that. So for personal use, you get a bunch of searches, and this dashboard kind of shows, how many searches I've used. And you can see over here what all of the API they have. They have Google searches, Google Lens, Google Events, Google, you can search your email. They also have Amazon, Apple App Store, Baidu, Bing, Facebook profiles, eBay searches, DuckDuckGo. So lots of different APIs within this. And we're going to use the Google search, and they have a really nice one for weather. So if we use weather, this is what a human sees when they ask what the weather is via Google. And what SERP API does is it takes this box and makes all of these things available to you in a very simple way. So you can see we're just going to say, what's the weather in Dallas? And it's going to return essentially all of this data in text form in a JSON package. So we can reach in and say, what's the current temperature? What's the forecast for the next week? We've got access to all that stuff. On Google, it looks like this, but when it comes back from SERP API, it's all broken down very nicely for us. So that's what we're going to use to build our MCP server to get the weather. So back to our stupid weather server. So I called it a funny name so that it's very obvious when we bring it up inside of a chatbot, we know it's ours. It's not some generic weather server. We know that it's our stupid weather server. So I do have, when you download this, when you go to the GitHub and download this, I even created a stupid weather server logo, but there's all the documentation is in here, so you'll know how to install it and so on. So into the code. Again, we use our secret type environment file to keep our secret keys. We don't want to expose that in code, just good practice. To instantiate our server, to initialize it, it's this simple. We just call fastmcp and give it a name, and that will advertise our server in a sense. Now, we define our tools, and the first tool we're going to have is get weather, and we give it a really nice description. So this is what the LLM will essentially use to search for an appropriate tool based on a user query. So once we install this, every time a user types a query, it's going to parse through these descriptions to see if it's got something it can use to help answer the query. So a nice, tight, relatively short, but very descriptive description is very important here. If it's vague, either it'll try to use it too much or it won't find it. So make sure your description is tight, and you might need to fool around with a little bit. It's also good. We learned, I think, early on, examples are extremely powerful with LLMs. So giving it some examples is helpful. So then we have actually the code, and I've got lots of documentation here. I tried to over document everything so that you could reuse this to create your own. So out of our secrets file, we pull the SERP API key. If it's not there, we give an error. This will go back to the LLM. So if for some reason we don't have the API key set up, the LLM will get a message explaining why things aren't working and can report back to you. The SERP API parameter payload is really simple. We just have the query, and this is just kind of like a prompt, but this forms essentially a Google search. So think when you're using SERP API, in this case, you want to think about it not like an LLM prompt, but a Google search. So we're going to keep it super simple. What's the weather in location? We have a couple of extra things. We have to tell it what language we want it in and what our general geographic location is. And then we pass it the API key that we just loaded up here. We do the search, which is a simple, if you go back up to the library, you'll see from SERP API, we loaded this function called Google Search. So that's pretty straightforward. We execute the search using these parameters. We get the results back, and it's in the form of a dictionary. So if we got an error, again, we return that error back to the LLM with kind of explains what happened. And then we get this answer box, which I showed you in the image over there. If the answer box doesn't exist, we have an error. Otherwise, we're going to extract the temperature from the answer box, the weather, and the forecast, and we're going to return the weather in Dallas is 72 degrees and sunny with a forecast of tornadoes for the rest of the summer. I think that's the standard Dallas forecast. And then we catch any errors and throw it back. Now, so that's an entire tool right there. Now, I also implemented a resource, and basically the resource is just going to pull our README file from here so we can ask the LLM to give us the documentation for the weather tool, for the weather server. So it's just going to read the README file and return that. Pretty simple. And then we have, so the resource is just here. I created another resource that's get the application status, and this one's kind of a fake. It just returns kind of a static return it's okay. It's been running for 12,000 hours, but it does return the MCP host. So it'll tell us what URL it's hosted on. So there is a little bit of dynamic there. And then I did create a prompt tool. So instead of MCP tool, we use MCP prompt. And basically what this is just a prompt template. And I created a prompt template that is, you are a weather reporter, give the weather report for Dallas in the style of George Carlin's classic hippy dippy weatherman from the 1960s. So that's a uh, um, so that's our MCP server. And then the main part just throws out to the console that it started up. That's about it. So that's the entire thing. Now, we can test this without hooking it up to an LLM. And to do that, um, FastMCP provides a little server executor tester module. So it's dev mode. So we can tell it to fire up the weather server in using the MCP protocol in development mode. So when we do that, it fires everything up and you can see all this stuff and it starts an inspector as a website. So let me show you that. So you can actually play around directly with the with your MCP code without having to put it into an LLM. So here's the inspector. And what we do is we connect to it. So you can see that it's using stdio. We can switch it to the server side events, but that's not how we're doing things. And we ran stupid weather server. We can look at the environment variables, etc. So we can list the resources. We have the get README and application status as resources, if you remember. We have prompts. We have what is the HIP weather report, and here's what that looks like. We have tools. We can list the tools, which is get weather. Um, so if I click on that, we can see over here, here's our JSON object that it's creating. And I can type in Dallas, Texas, and run the tool. And you can see it's running. So it's actually executing the code in the tool. And here's the JSON payload that comes back from SERP API. You can kind of read in here, it's 66, mostly sunny with the following forecast. Here's the unstructured content. It does say it's valid according to the schema, etc. The tool result was success. So we can test our MCP server very extensively using this interface without going into an LLM. Now, if now we feel like everything's running, so now we can hold our breath and go over to the LLM and see if we can get it to work over there. So let me bring up LM Studio again. And there's our cat. So let me start a new chatbot. You can see there's no weather server over here right now. So if we say, what's the weather right now in Rourkela, Odisha? I'm hoping it tells me that it doesn't know. So it's thinking about it. It's looking through possible tools that it might have. It's very slow today. I must have too much going on my machine. I don't have access to live data, so I can't give you the current weather in Rorkala. All right, that makes total sense. So now let's go to our to install our weather server. You can see in our MCP servers we have just the Hugging Face one. So let me add the code for our weather server. I've got it kind of pre-cooked here, so let's see. Okay, so it does a little bit of syntax checking. So we're adding, in addition to the Hugging Face, we're going to add stupid weather. We've got the command. It's going to run this command. It's going to run the Python, and it's going to run it. It's going to run this as an argument. So basically, it's going to say Python stupidweatherserver.py. Makes perfect sense. We're going to save that. Now you can get a note down here, MCP server added, stupid weather has been added successfully. And if we go up here, we have to enable it. So remember to do that. And we have one tool, which is called get weather. So now if we go back here and we repeat this, and we're patient and wait for it for a few seconds, it's now going to make use of get weather, which it didn't have before. Current weather in Rourkela, Odisha, 70 degrees and clear. Rakesh, will you stick your head out the window and verify that? Is that true? Is that roughly the correct temperature?
Oh, you need say it in Celsius, Tom, not
Yeah,
Fahrenheit.
but it's here. It's 21 degrees, and here's the forecast. So looks like a nice weekend in Rourkela, sunny and 84 Fahrenheit in the King's measurement units. So we've now successfully written and created a tool. So round of applause. But one thing that's interesting, LM Studio does not make use of the prompts, and it does not make use of the resources. It just ignores them. So that's kind of interesting, I guess. So LM Studio is not a complete MCP server implementation. It only looks at the tools. Now, if we want to look at some of the other advanced features, we can look at Claude Desktop. So Claude, if you go to the Claude web, you can install MCP servers, but they have to be, as far as I know, they have to be remote HTTP servers. So I'm going to use Claude Desktop, which is just an installed app on your desktop, obviously. And let's see, we'll do a new chat. To install a server here, we go into settings and developer, and we see there's no servers added currently. So when in the developer mode, it's basically local MCP servers. Just like LM Studio, we can edit the config, and we'll go into text edit mode, which I guess you probably can't see, but it's the exact same thing as we did in LM Studio. I'm just going to drop in the stupid weather JSON code. Let me count my curly braces here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I think that's good. Save it. Boom. Okay. Hopefully. Now, the one thing with Claude Code is in order to get it to work, you have to actually quit and restart it. So if you don't do that, you won't see your tools. And let me reshare that. Okay. So now, hopefully, if we go over to settings, developer, now we have stupid weather. And it tells us what the command is, and it says it's running. So now we can go over here and we can say, what is the weather at St. Andrews Golf Course in Scotland?
Raining. I guarantee it. You don't need any action.
And you can see it's using weather from stupid weather. Here's the request, and it's running and thinking. It's actually running the Google search.
Did you allow it, Tom?
Oh, thank you. 38 and cloudy. It's not raining, but it will be. A lovely day for a round of golf, 41 Fahrenheit and light rain. So 16-mile-an-hour wind. So probably wind chill would be about 20 degrees, you figure?
Straight off the North Sea. Yeah, that'd be about right.
Yeah. So classic Scottish golf weather. Oh, little snarky addition. So we've just added that. Now, one thing we can do here is if we hit this plus sign down here, you can see there's another new box here that says add from stupid weather. We can get the README file now. So it'll load that up, and now it's part of our context, and we can say, how do we install stupid weather? And it has the README in its window now. So it can summarize that. It can look through our README file and hopefully make a sensible answer. So here's gives us step-by-step: install fastmcp, SERP and python.env. Put it, create an environment file. Here's your configuration for LM Studio, important notes, and how to run it. So that's another thing. So the other thing we had was a prompt. So we can say, what's the HIP weather report? If you remember our prompt, it said it's going to give us the weather report, but in the style of a character that George Carlin invented in the 1960s called the Hippy Dippy Weatherman. You guys I don't think there's a person on this call who's old enough to even know what that is. But in this case, instead of us typing the whole prompt, it has the prompt template already inside of it. So we just ask it for a location. So we'll ask it for a hippie type place, which I think the ground zero for hippies is Berkeley, California. So it's going to take the location, plug it into our prompt template, and we just submit that. And it will answer the question. It'll take on a new role. The point of the prompt template was to give it a new role or a new character, let's say, and we'll remember to hit allow this time. So you can see adopting comedic persona for a creative weather report, getting the weather. You can see it thinking. The character is known for this, that, or the other. And here, hey there, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the Hippy Dippy Weather Report, broadcasting direct from cosmic consciousness of Berkeley, California, man. Right now, Mother Earth is showing us 47 degrees in the bay, and she's totally clear. et cetera, et cetera. So again, you could here, that's an example of using the prompt template. Um, so we've covered tools, prompts, resources, and you now have an example of an MCP server that will be up in the Git. I encourage you to download it and take a look at SERP API. Next week we'll do something a little bit more complicated that involves getting data, analyzing it, and doing some processing on it to make something a little bit more valuable. Most chatbots can go get you the weather. That's not a hard thing. But we'll try to do something next week with a little bit more value add and kind of advance our knowledge. But now you have enough. You could go write your own MCP server, plug it into Claude Desktop, plug it into LM Studio, and come up with your own cool application, put it out on the internet, and make $1,000 by next class time. So, any questions? We're right at 7:30, so I'll hang around for a minute.
I'll just throw in one thought if anyone is interested. MCP has really piqued my interest in the last couple of months, and I guess I would say if I look back 20 years ago, right, when I kind of first started in this industry, everything was big data, right, and there was this huge big data hype at the time, and I was fresh out of college and I was all for it. Yeah, I'll go do anything. Fantastic. And it's really funny. I think, all over the news all this week, right? Stocks, shares, AI bubbles, when's it going to blow up? Same conversation we were having 20 years ago about big data. And for me, it's been really interesting to look at this AI hype cycle with some hindsight, I guess, and experience, because I always go back and look at big data and think about what came out of it, right? What were the lasting things that actually survived the hype and came about from it? And I think about things like Spark. Most of the world runs on Spark today, and that came out of Hadoop and that enterprise adoption of open source and some of the things that kind of fell out of it. At the same time, it was kind of a crazy time because we were pulling Java developers into BI. Java developers have never worked in BI ever in their lives before, and suddenly you've got BI teams hiring Java developers, right? So there was this like weird skill mismatch. And at the time, it was all about how do I take a file? How do I chop that file up into 1,000 different blocks, hold it in a distributed computing system and allow it to be queried and pulled back and, blah, blah, all that. What I saw come from that is that's all gone back to the appliance. Right? I don't need to worry about that. I'll throw a 10 terabyte file at Snowflake and go, right? All of that knowledge of how do I chop up a file? How do I do the distributed compute? How do I do this, that, and the next thing? 20 years ago, that didn't exist in your typical relational database, right? So it's the other thing I saw was that a lot of the useful things coming back and landing back in the appliance as well at the same time. So I'm just throwing on some thoughts, right? MCP, I believe, is one of the things that will last, and it's going to evolve absolutely. The MX plus N diagram that Tom showed us last week, I was joking with Tom, you could actually just remove all the text from the boxes and describe the exact same diagram for a pub sub architecture for data integration, right? Rather than all these point-to-point integrations between all these different applications, I have something in the middle that speaks, I can publish and all these things can subscribe, and I can create this ecosystem where I have all these different tools talking in a similar language, So that's why I think MCP will survive. That's why I think it will evolve and become really, really powerful. I think, Tom's going to get into it. I think what we've looked at today is more the retrieval side of things, right? What's the weather? Give me a cat, fantastic examples. I think it, really sums it up. What about when you take that to action, right? Go create a PO for me. Go allocate this product to this store. Go deny this invoice because of X, Y, and Z, right? And you start taking, this thing can now find out information, it can now reason, and then can now take action. Is that whole agentic revolution, and I think MCP becomes part of the glue that holds it together. So anyway, I'm rambling, but
yep. So just to add on to that, think about the first 7 weeks that we developed this ticket response agent, and we built an application that used LLMs to do some of the work. MCP, you could flip that completely around and use the LLM to use tools to do all the work, just completely backwards. Have the LLM orchestrate all the work instead of the developer orchestrating the work. Give the LLM the tools to do the work and tell it to orchestrate. Read the ticket. Go get the ticket from the database, or from the email inbox. Scan the email inbox. Do we have any tickets? Then here are some tools you can use to answer that ticket, because maybe the internet doesn't have all the answers. We have some of it locked up in our company documentation. So give it the tools to do the job, and now you've just flipped the entire application on its head by giving the LLM tools. So I think that aligns with what Neil's saying. Instead of creating an application that uses LLMs, create tools that the LLM uses to accomplish what the application is supposed to do. So cool. Thanks, Neil. Good thoughts. I like it. All right. Well, I think in honor of Thanksgiving, everyone will be in the U.S. will be recovering from massive overeating, and Friday morning they'll be sleeping off their turkey coma and getting ready to hit the stores or the internet for Black Friday. So I don't think class would be the most productive thing next Friday. In India, you can say a few prayers for everybody trying to shop on Black Friday, and so they don't get trampled. So we'll skip next Friday, and we'll come back and pick this up, and do it again after a week off. So
Yeah, like
see you
Tom,
in see.
next week India's team is going on trip, so
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Chandan is there anyway. So great. So everybody's got things to do next Friday. So great. Have a great time on your pilgrimage with Chandan.
are you guys going are you going to Goa again?
yeah.
One of these days, I told Chandan I'm coming to that, so I'll pay for my own ticket. I'd love to go to Goa.
I was going to go this year, but health issues got in the way for right now. But next year.
Next year, let's book it.
Yep.
Next year, we're all going to Goa.
That's right.
Sounds good.
All right, guys.
Well, yeah, have a great trip there. Chandan sent me some pictures from before, and yeah, looks like a fun time. So.
All right. Have a great one. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Tom.